Hello, everybody. So thank you for joining us for our webinar today on compliance with normative or V model requirements in automotive, ASPICE and ISO 26262. My name is Amit Das Gupta and I'm elated to be your moderator today. So before introducing our speaker for today, let me share some housekeeping details. So this webinar will be recorded and the link to the recording will be shared with all of you along with the presentation deck. All attendees will be kept in mute to avoid any background noise. We will have a question and answer session at the end. If you have any questions, requirements, or comments as we go, please feel free to type those in the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, so our speaker and presenter today is Thomas Arens. Thomas has more than 30 years of experience in the automotive and avionic, medical, and IT industries. And as a project manager, he has experience in delivering projects using V model, Agile, SAFe, CMMI, RUP, Scrum, as well as Kanban. Thomas also represents Kovair in Germany and other countries in Europe. So with that, I will pass over to Thomas to begin the webinar on compliance with normative or V model requirements.
Okay, so good evening from Germany right now. I will guide you through this, as you can already see on the screen, compliance in automotive, SPICE 26262, and how to realize that in the ALM studio. Let me shortly give you into the agenda that I've planned for today. So we'll shortly introduce you to the company Deutscher Mittelstand and Kovair. I will cover the regulatory scope of SPICE for those who are not that deeply familiar with the SPICE. The same for the 26262. Then I will show you what the solution will cover, and then we go live into the tool to show you. Let me shortly introduce to Deutscher Mittelstand. We are based in Germany near Stuttgart, and we have it in automotive, medical, aerospace stuff, lot of work inside. I've been working with various ALM tools over the several last years. Recently, we do, the respective actions together with Kovair as one of the top ALM tools, but mainly here in Europe. While I still have, due to marriage and other stuff, connections to China, and I have a large customer in Vietnam. So that's where we are working on. We have several partners in industry and academia, going up to University of Mannheim, Heidelberg, Beuth Hochschule, and other ones. And we have been working for various other companies. This is a short list from Airbus to Zotier. Airbus, I guess everybody know, but Audi, Baidu, that's the Chinese Google, BMW. Going over to Dongfeng, Continental in Frankfurt, and Lindau, Northrop Grumman. This one maybe nobody know, but it's one of the most stable and expanding fashion industry people. Great Wall is an automotive one. That's a banking area. Viettel Aerospace, that's in Vietnam. Voice Robots is a very big, IVR, Intelligent Voice Response Solution company. VW in Dalian and Zotier and others. Now let me shortly show you what about Kovair is the provider of the tool you will later see on, is based in Silicon Valley and India. The flagship is the ALM Studio in requirements management, workflow test and issue management. And to be honest, everybody who sees the Omnius integration middleware here in Europe, where it is still kind of unknown, goes really into, wow, how is that great? I will show you that later on. We have really easy configuration possibilities with that tool. The data lake is an additional product we have inside of Kovair. And for sure, Kovair supports all kinds of development methods. Is it Agile? Is it DevOps? Is it V-model, classical, RUP, or whatever you need? So, major customers, Panasonic Automotive, I guess everybody knows, Applied Materials, Chip Equipment, Cisco, I guess everybody in IT has heard from. NVIDIA is a major company, computer people ever heard about. And okay, Kovair is one of the featuring or one of the key leaders in ALM market, especially US and India. So let me now go into the solution that I've prepared for you. Let me first go into what is SPICE. SPICE original norm is the 15504 330X. It comes from the wording, I know that's a bit strange, software, process, improvement, capability, determination. So as you can see, the original was the 15504, it's now moving to the 33001. And I'm going to show you the regulatory scope of SPICE. So the basics for the so-called automotive SPICE is the 15504 that you've heard beforehand. And this is a set of technical standard documents. Please remind, it's a technical standard. It's nothing new or hip or whatever. For computer software development, please, it's not for hardware, it's not for mechanic, for the process, and this is often omitted, business management functions, because the SPICE norm is an organizational norm. It's not only something called software norm, it's really an organizational norm. So this is the original 15504 process house, as you can see that. If people start on that the first time, they really go, and start heavy briefing due to the fact that you address in total of 65 processes and more than 250 work products. So this is quite something, and what you can see is a lot of organizational cycles, supplementary cycles, reuse management, support processes, project management processes, and agreement processes, and this is only the development process. So this norm has been adapted. I introduced it to the automotive one. The automotive is a derivative out of the ISO. It has been developed by the special interest groups, and its latest publication available freely on automotivespice.com is the PAM 3.1 published July. There's still a typing inside. I made that from November 2017. The SPICE norm has a further telling called VDA scope, and the VDA scope reduces the mandatory processes and work products that have to be delivered. Let me go to the process house of ASPICE. You have seen before 65 processes, more than 250 work products. And this is the process house of Automotive SPICE with only 32 processes, 128 work products. As you can see, there is still the management group inside, the reuse, the process improvement, some supporting processes, the supply process, and the acquisition group, including supplier actions mainly on that side. So this is still a lot of things to do. Thus, the first area, what is inside of the Automotive SPICE, is a reduction of the Automotive SPICE to the so-called VDA scope. VDA is an abbreviation of the German group of automotive development. As you can see right now, we come down to 16 processes and about 100 work products. What is mainly inside is, for sure, you need to have some project management. In the supporting group, you have the quality assurance, configuration management, what's a major issue in most companies when they develop. You have the problem resolution and change management, something everybody knows who's been developing anything, anytime. For sure, you have to watch your suppliers and monitor that they are delivering what you want to have from them. So that's inside. And then you have the classical system engineering group, starting elicitation and classic V model. And you have, because it's a software process group, the software engineering process group as described here. This is still a lot of things to do. So SPICE mainly refers or only refers to the software part, wherein as the system engineering process group, you will for sure find requirements for hardware, for production, for mechanic stuff. And there is even a further tailoring if you go to the VDA scope software only. Because if you are only software developer and you have nothing to do with system engineering, I had one of my customers was delivering only a flash bootloader, and everything he had to do was described the inside already software requirements he got from his customers. So he was only keeping in that small V model here. For sure, all the others like supplier monitoring, he didn't have to do because he didn't have any supplier. He was only doing that part of the software. For sure, software supporting area, quality management mainly inside here, and project management. So this is the minimum situation you can have in SPICE. The typical situation is that one that you still do system development. Let me now go a bit further into the regulatory scope of the 26262. This is the upcoming norm. It's called Road Vehicles Functional Safety. And as everybody can imagine, if you go to autonomous level 4 or 5, according to SIE 3016, the standard ISO 26222 covers the functional safety, and there is even an extension in the meantime that's called SOTIF, safety of the intended function. And this 26262 is based on the original IEC 61508. That's the functional safety standard, and then it is a risk-based standard, and the latest version you have is from 2018. Typical, any norm has a latency time of 3 years where you have to switch from the old to the new version. In the latest version of 26262, this requirement has been stiffened. Let me show you right now. I hope you can see at least this is a picture coming out of the norm itself. What you can find in the net everywhere is the vocabulary, the concept phase, adaptation for motorcycles, but here is the system level. Here is hardware development, software development, production operation service, and the supporting processes, and the ASIL-oriented analyses that are inside of that. And then I go back to what you have here. You see here is a big V model inside with small V's inside. And if you go into the automotive SPICE again, you all of a sudden, if you go to page 122, you will find that there is one more V. So it starts to get some matching there, and I'm going to show you how that is matching, because this is the group, what you find in 26262. You have a concept phase. This is not anywhere covered in SPICE, and you have a production and operation area. This is as well not covered in SPICE. However, the product development at the system level, you will find in that, that was not intended. You will find inside of that V here. So for sure, initiation, specification, design, you have that inside, release for production later on here, but item integration and testing, you will find here. Safety validation is an additional one, and functional safety assessment. However, this can be done inside here, a later on process. So it's a very similar situation. And the product development at the hardware level is described in that area here, even though they state here these are example processes. The software product development is the SPICE mapping, and for sure you can do the same in the mechanical engineering part. So it seems that there is a lot of congruency between those two things, whereas the 26262 is a lot larger. So the additional items you will find mainly in the 26262, if you compare that with automotive SPICE, are special development items. something called item definition. That is the area where your risks to your viewset come from. You have the risk management, that is the basic of the 26262, derived from the standard risk management group 31000. You add the FMEA, failure mode defect analysis, the FMEDA, failure modes, effects and diagnostics analysis. And you have something called FIT, failure in time calculation, and single point fault metrics and latent fault metrics. These are specials in regards to ensuring that a sensor stays alive and delivers the data, and the data are processed correctly. Imagine your radar in your car giving you the distance to the next car, and accordingly changes speed and hits the brakes or not, all of a sudden fails, and you accelerate to high speed and directly crash into that. So these are the things you look onto it. In order to handle, there's as well something called a failure tree analysis and a hazard and risk analysis. So these are the main items. There is a lot more, but I don't want to go too much into detail because that's not what it's about. Now, let me show you what you will later on see in that template and what's inside. Now, if you go a bit of deep breathing, that might be very normal. What you can see in the top right are all those items that are mandatory processes in the Automotive SPICE VDA scope for system development. And all these processes, what you have inside, are realized in the template. So out of the template itself, all the basics you have to cover are inside. These processes, at least by the basics, what needs to be in there, are covered for sure. You still have to do the work, but the template covers. Plus, what you can see here on the lower end, I have been inserting as well hardware part, not the mechanical, but that can be added as well. The hardware part of the development process is in there as well. So the SPICE would be covered, and I'm going to show you the more details later on. Now in the 26262, you see all those processes that you have to do according to the respective areas are covered here as well. In the concept phase, the respective hazard analysis, item definition, lifecycle management, and the functional safety concept you will find inside. On the system development, the technical safety, the system architecture, and this is mapping for sure to the system architecture in SPICE. The system item integration and verification is inside, the safety validation is inside. And as seen in the last page, the hardware and software level is in there. We added config management, change management, documentation management, hazard and risk analysis, and the risk management. It's all inside of the template. And we have done a lot of predefined content. Everybody, whoever has been working in automotive-driven design or wherever, knows that the plans that typically will guide the execution of your process are mostly not existing or purely executed or whatever, or even many of the things what I've seen is they're not existing. So in order to catch up and have a base to work on, there are a lot of predefined plans and data insights that will help you to guide you make better and faster products. It is a huge amount of data, as you can see already here, but it is, if you once walk through it and if we guide you into that tool, you will see how that works. So now I guess I've been talking nearly enough of the process and all that stuff. As what you can see, SPICE is a tailored software development standard. And if you go through it, you have a total of 126 work products here, 124 work products here, application, 26 processes, 32 processes, V model handling, and everybody working in that knows it's a sheer quantity of work to be executed. Now, live presentation, I'm going to switch to Kovair, and now let me log in and guide you into the template. So what we have here right now is the template in itself and the standard view that you get if you start in Kovair is that all the tasks that you have from any of your projects pop up in that area for you. Now I'm guiding you into that template. So as I will not be always present to show you what is in, there is a template content description. So what you can see here right now is the standard view set that you have as a default view, and I will switch that over to the respective document view so that you can see that here, and you see as well there is a filter inside you can have, so everything that's open. What you can see is it starts with naming conventions as they are in there. The typical V model is in all normative areas typically mandatory. So automotive avionics want to have the V model, and there is no contradiction to the agile. And we go through that. The processes and roles as they are used here are derived from the SPICE, and you have seen that one before, and I don't need to go into that one. The plugin concept you have seen, and now we come to something you will find on the page 124 of the automotive SPICE area, where you will see the traceability concept that has been realized here in that template as well. So the typical requirement from the top of your stakeholder down to any test, down to any decision, including static verification results, this traceability setup is done in Kovair. And now we come to something I will want to show you, the so-called mapping of configuration items. I will deeply go into that one later on. Is the problem that the respective work products as described in SPICE and 26.26.2 are not the company names. So I have something created called company configuration items, where the config manager can with ease oversee what's inside and for sure add that a bit and make the configuration management a lot easier. I've done a full mapping to automotive SPICE. I've done a mapping to all the 26.26.2 items. There are a lot of plans inside. For example, project management plan according to ISO IEC IEEE 16326. And I have various roles that are pre-configured, and they can for sure be adapted to the company needs. There is something inside called project cost calculation. I'm not going into that one today. It would cover 2 webinars in one shot, and I removed that for today. Then as well on the config item, this is the main on the template content. And now I go with you first into the SPICE configuration mapping. That's where we started with. So what you can see here is that there is a view set that I've created called work product. For sure, you can create a lot of other things. But here inside of that area is described, and you can see that with a total of 426 records, how every requirement from the SPICE processes is handled in that tool. So if you go definition scope of work, where do you do that? And for sure, this is inside of the template for all the work products. As an example, is where do I find my project plan? Where do I find my communication record? Where do I find my review record? Where do I find? And it's done for all areas. System, best practices. How do you do that? Where do you find that here inside, or where do you don't find it? Because not everything can be covered inside. You still have to get your job done. So you will find that all the items that are inside of the respective base practices are somewhat described. For example, the review record, okay, you need to do the reviews, and then out of the functionality of review of Kovair, you will get the respective evidence of that one. And where do I find the things? For all the items, I don't need to go into more details. You see here for all the items, you will find that one. What is needed to be inside? Where do I find the details? So that's all. So the same is done for the 26.26.2. Because config management is key to success. Try to mount the wheels of a lorry onto a small car or vice versa. So what you can see inside here is for sure as well the various work products requirements that are required by the 26.26.2, and you see it's a total of 134 records. You need evidence of field monitoring is not part of the template. Maybe you can understand that one, but the item definition is typically done by the OEM, but you still have to follow up. So you need to put them into your system requirements. So it's roughly described how to get all those things inside of your company. And for sure, where are those things? Here is a safety plan. Okay, here is a safety plan. I'm going to show you that later. So as I stated beforehand, this is as well then here pointing to the config management where you will find those entities again. But in this company configuration items, that's one of the key areas, is one-time job to be done, and then that can be reused. For example, you are describing that internally called system requirement specification. And the problem is that your system requirement will be having typical areas here that you have according to SPICE. A typical system requirement specification that you have, and you see them all here, these are the ones you have to do. And company-wise, okay, you have a system requirement specification, but inside you will have the change control derived from the change management action. You typically as well will request to have verification criteria as a rich text field in the entity. You will have the traceability done with Kovair. You will have the analysis report either done with a peer review or your own analysis method, because we still have peer review items inside here. And for sure, in the system level, you should be having a part of the interface requirement specification. There is no need to have a separate entity. You can do that, but it will be more difficult to work on it. So the same you will have on the 26.26.2. What is required for whatever? In this case is the 754 specification of requirements for production, operation, service, and decommissioning. This is typically inside of the system requirement specification. If you are forced to adhere to other normative part, you can do the same with other areas. The question would be who would be reviewing here inside, who would be executing inside. So all those things are predefined inside of that area. And this typical times is something for finance calculation, but that's not important for right now. So what you can see is that here inside you once define how the wordings of your areas is there. I remember a large OEM, instead of 200 and something areas, he was down to 110 work products. Sorry, I have to sneeze. So this will covering the company configuration items. Now, the main thing after config management, what is really top, is the total project management. So what you will find is inside of this template, I told you, you will have the project management plan. And this project management plan is derived from the as I stated, 16.3.26. You see, this is a typical project management plan, even though often overlooked. You have to identify all your roles. And let me show you that in a document view. So all areas where you have to work in need to be described. And this is the project plan form, and you have specifics inside what you need to describe. You need to describe your purposes, your schedule, your policies. What do you do on changes? What do you do with all the technical standards? And you see here, for example, SPICE 26262, and this is the risk norm for medical. That's as well you can implement with ease inside here, or the typical 31,000. Our medical stuff inside again, and then stakeholders. If you don't check onto your stakeholders, you might run into major troubles. For example, the Works Council, especially in Europe, needs to be watched on. They can stop projects if they don't agree with you. And this is part of the stakeholder analysis you need to do. You need to have a glossary. You will find that inside here. You will have your project references and all those things. This is not something that is unknown to the most of the people. It is rather that due to the sheer quantity you have, it is something where the people say, oh, that's too much. No, it's just easy to work through it and then go here inside what you have to do, what's your budget plannings and all those things. You always do that if you're a project manager, but typically overlooked. So the same you have with a project management handbook. That's the same. You typically need to have that. Your auditor will ask for that. And here is the same inside. That's the typical project management handbook that is used for areas where you need to go through it. And you just once need to adapt that to your company specifics. And then later on, put into those dates that apply for the project. And that's it mainly. Then you can reuse these plans like with ease, and it includes all the things again. It's very similar to the project management plan. So what you will find within of this template, it's rather 150% specification. You can cut out what you don't need, and then you are ready to go. And that's a lot easier than to add things you don't have. You have the standard functions of Kovair for sure inside. I'm only shortly running into that without going too much into details. The task scheduler, for sure you want to have that. You want to see your resource workloads over time. And this is what you can see inside right now. If something is allocated or over allocated, this is a cross-project search function you will find. Not going too much into that. Now you come to a various area where the people start to get heartbeat breathing or whatever. This is the typical list of plans that you have to create and to maintain and to execute during the development of an automotive area where you do automotive development. You have the project management plan, you have seen that. You will need to have a quality management plan. You will find that with the basics predefined inside here. And without going into details, you see it's only 124 records. You will need to have a software development plan. And that's the same here as well. So you go through that, and all those plans you see on the left side, only 89 records, but it's a basic plan. You have to fill that with life. And it's every time people look into that, what I've been creating here, they say, yes, I know that. I never did it to that detail. That's the same inside here. You have it for the config management plan. You can click here anywhere, and you will find that all those items that are required and they typically have to write, and that is typically a pain to really get those things done, is take that work on that once, get those things inside. This is a one-time action, and then you have your plan. For sure, you can merge them all together in the project management plan, or you can keep that as it is here. Some people like to have that in one plan. Some people skip, pending the size of company and project. So it's going through all the areas you have. The software test strategy for sure as well should be inside with something that you do there. And you will not find a big strategy. You don't need to have a big strategy. It's not like do a plan for the plan, do a plan for your company and for your approaches. You will find that everywhere inside here, there is a basic or even sometimes a very detailed plan according to the need that I can see that is typically needed inside of a company. I've been doing project management in automotive since 2004. And there are a lot of plans that are over exceeding what you need. And as you can see, it's a very short one. That's typically enough for that area. For sure, you need to check that for yourself. Sorry, I hit a button I didn't want to, but let's do that again. Now, after all your plans that you have seen here right now, you have the same for the risk management group. The risk management group contains the risk management plan. I didn't click on that beforehand. You will see there is as well for sure a short or even a bit longer risk management. How do I handle risks? Only 44, but that is typically sufficient. For sure, you will extend that to the degree that you need to do within of your company. You have to do a hazard and risk analysis. And here are your hazard and risk items. For example, I took out of one project I've been doing hazards. A delayed frame of a camera, if you do a camera mirror replacement system, this is the killer because all of a sudden your mirror is no longer working. Here is the respective area. Delayed frame of the camera. Who was the submitter? Sumanil did that for me. What's the state of that one? What's the severity, exposure, and controllability? And it's calculating a number, and out of that derives an either A or not, whatever you have. This is pending what you want to do. Then for sure, this is a part of the 26.26.2. You will do as well the pure risk management, because a risk is not necessarily what you have. And here inside you find the standard project problem lists. For example, the physical location of the teams prevent effective management, especially if you have cross-border projects, people working in China, in India, in the US, and in Europe, and maybe in Russia, and in Africa, and Australia on that. This is a typical risk. How do you handle that? This is typical risk management action, what you do while going through that. And here's the typical risk matrix that is standard. In the meantime, it's the 5x5. And then for sure, description. And then the next action would be mitigation. And then for sure, let me hit the right button here. You would create a task out of that risk, add a task to mitigate that risk. This is standard what you have here. And therewith, you would have your risk management covers. This is the top level, and especially if you want to go to CMMI 5 and to CMMI spiral, this is the approach top down with risks. But here we find all the things you have been seeing beforehand. The customer requirements, for sure, we did not do something inside there. And this is a view set, requirements by type, all autumn items. And what you can see here already is a suspect link. Has there been something that has been changed that gives you a suspect flag? For sure, from the customer, you go down to the company internal requirements. And if I open just one here, let's see if there is something inside. You will find related internal requirements. You have to plan any of your areas to a release. You have to do a review check inside. Okay, who was the reviewer, what he do? You have to do a basic review. Maybe you want to have verification criteria inside so you can edit those. You need to have test cases associated with. Either you can do that typically as in Kovair with a relate existing. And if there is nothing inside, okay, this is a relate existing. Thank you for that. That would be done. There's a cardinality violation. That's great because it shows you set inside the relationships as you need them inside of your development, because typically you will have a one company internal requirement to many test cases requirement, and you will not have many test cases covering the same customer requirement because of the uniqueness requirement that you have for a requirement. There will be no such thing that a test case can be adhered to, so you have to create a new one here inside from your, for example, that is called here entity clinical test. It is operative test, it's automotive test. That's whatever you want to name, then these names can be done as you like them. So as this is very similar in medical, for sure you have clinical ones, and on the operative one, that one, you have the respective hardware requirements as needed. And what you can find here is as well, there is something inside. However, in the software requirement level, we have inserted a basic standard of requirements as it is typically done. This as well, a coverage of 51%, 51 items. Like what do you need to check for in the requirements? It's starting with overall description, product perceptives, interface descriptions, constraints, product functions, external interfaces, compliances, reliability, availability, security, and specific requirements, specific feature blocks, all inside. This is a standard requirements document. For sure, you can take that one as well to make your company internal ones. We have the architecture management starting with the system architecture. For sure, every requirement needs to be assigned to an architectural element. And this is as well a predefined one. What do you typically do as an architectural area? So this is the same for the software architecture, where you have that insight on the hardware architecture. That's not where is something predefined, that's done typically very different. But here as well, a standard view set, white box, black box view set, runtime scenarios, design decisions. The same you have on the design development without going into details. This is the typical V model that you have seen before. On the software detail design, for sure, there is nothing inside because detail will always be specific. We didn't fill that. In the test management, you will see that all items that are needed, software unit test, hardware detail, system test, okay, software test are all inside, including the test runs, as you might need them, because for sure, if you do a test run, you need to have the evidences, and you will see the evidences of test runs inside of that template. The same is true for the release management, where you just define your releases, and for sure you can move that into the project management. So release management is inside here as well. You will find respective areas here as well. This is as well on the wordings. Watch out. Automotive typically says A, B, C, D, but there as well, specific customers have specific wordings. In the medical area, everybody wants to have that. And in the companies, if I look into Daimler, VW, and BMW, and Ford, and CFMA, and whatever, they have all kinds of internal wordings, and the tier ones use them or don't use them and match them. So whatever you want to have, here are your respective releases, start and finish date, what you manage, and all of your requirements needs to be assigned according to normative requirements to that. You have your defect management if you get your bugs inside without going a lot into details here. Let me do that shortly. You will find all the defects. As an example inside, what's your defect? What do you want to do with it? Are there duplicates? What do I want to do with that? Where do they belong to? Because defects can be all around on requirements and on test cases. This is not special one inside. You need to have your documents inside management inside, because you will get documents. And one of the wildest thing you can have is I refer to whatever. What you can see here inside is, this is a special of Kovair. Anytime you insert a plan, you can or cannot let that directly move into the document library. So, for example, a VDI 5702 or a software development lifecycle definition. Instead of, for sure, I've been writing those documents beforehand, or a safety concept I've been writing, or general requirements for risk management I've been writing. So instead of by hand putting them into, you use the typical Kovair import functions as you will find them here. And if you have a document, is it whatever that you want to insert here, it will come here as well if you do the right setting. And for sure, you can manage all the documents. So for everybody, the documents will be at the same place and they will be consistent and not like I don't know where I put them. And for sure with history, as Kovair always does, you find the documentation management plan. The same for the change management. And here we go into the safety management. You need to have the technical safety concept. You will have the safety configuration mapping. You have seen that beforehand, the hazard and risk analysis. The safety concept itself, that's technical and functional safety concept. Here you have some gate review checklists as well, because on a gate you want to do a review of your items inside. And here are questions. What do I need to do? What should I check or not? And for sure, you once have to decide that. Once you've done that, it's only 321 records. You want to check, do I have the size of the architecture, the hierarchy, the encapsulation, is that in or not? And this gate review can be treated as a test case for sure. And then you can check on all the gates with all the requirements. What do I need to do? And all those things. As you can see, that's quite something inside. The safety plan, if you want to have that as a basic structure, will be inside as well. What do I do? Where do I look for? Executive summary. It's a predefined plan, what you need to do. And if you start filling that one and start living that one, I tell you out of experience, even though it's very sad that it's not done correctly, you will be compliant with the most things as requested by norm, and as well that you should do in order to avoid any collisions with vehicles or whatever. So in the config management, you find, as beforehand seen, the configuration management plan, the baselines as you do them in Kovair, the company configuration items you've seen beforehand, other norms you might be doing, for sure this is empty right now. There is a special called abbreviations list. So one of the main errors you will find is that the wordings used are not the same. So with permission of the IREP International Requirements Engineering Board, all the typical abbreviations as used are put into that here as well. So all the standard definitions that should be used, for example, typical error situation, PCB versus PCB. It's a printed circuit board or a problem control board. So it can very fastly run into problems. So here you define so that you get agreement and you really can coordinate on those things to be done, and you don't have discussions what is meant with what. This is, besides other things, one of the most important areas to do. For sure, in other document area in the config management, what you can see here as well, you can see the part of the dis, what I put into that. You will find the respective records that are in, and then the parts for the safety that I put into here in order to get you those requirements as stated here in the safety area. There you will only find the respective work products because I extracted them out of that and stated, okay, these are the things needed. So here are the respective records that I pulled out of that with respective to the chapter so that you can do that correctly. Here is the review in the project. For sure, this is the standard function. On the quality gates, you will find various checklists. You have seen one beforehand. Here is the peer review checklist for requirements. And this is inside here. This is a lot of checklists. You will find that on the quality with a redoing, you will find reports and dashboards as a standard. And now this is the typical reports you have, the dashboards typically used by management. What is where, for example, requirements distribution, coverage of risk management, these are standard reports to be done. So up to now, you have seen the coverage of that one here. And now I would like you to ask your questions in regards to the template or to the norm so that I can answer whatever you have. Please go ahead, and I hope you enjoyed it up to here. Let's do a short summary before I start on that with the questions. Nearly everything you need to do in order to achieve compliance you have inside. It's just a huge amount of work. It's not complicated. It's nearly everything predefined. So it's a kind of out-of-the-box solution. Please go ahead, ask your questions.
Thank you, Thomas, for this lovely presentation. So yeah, we do have few questions for you. So I will start with the first one. So the first one states that can there be a solution only covering ASPICE, or the solution for ASPICE automatically covers ISO 26262?
Oh, for sure, you can only do SPICE. And if SPICE and 26262 are, not contradictory, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And this is one thing I put into that tool here right now. This is company configuration. As I stated beforehand, I did here a kind of 150% specification. 150% specification means that there might be items inside you don't need. So if you only need SPICE, you just take out all those things you don't need. You just cut them out. You don't show them anymore. Thank you. You are right now inside of SPICE. And if you need to have 26262, the typical request coming from 26262 means you have to be compliant with SPICE. And even sometimes the people say, I want to have SPICE for hardware. But this is something that is covered. So it's nearly everything inside of that template. For sure, you still have to execute the job, but you can do that. And this is what I said in the beginning, in the kickoff meeting. You decide what kind of project, and then you take out whatever you don't need.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is that what is the difference between the project management plan that you showed and the plan that someone creates in the task scheduler?
Okay, good. So the VBS, if you look into the SPICE configuration management, there is something called work breakdown structure or project plan. I guess it's 0F, let me see, VBS. So the VBS inside here, I hope I hit that directly, work breakdown structure and schedule are parts of the typical Gantt chart that you see where you start to plan the workload. However, the project management plan, as you can see that inside here, let me, where's my scroll gone? Sorry, that is inside here. The project management plan covers all the things to be considered of. If you go through that here, you will see that in a plan, project references needs to be, document overview, timing estimations, it's an estimation. This would be like you say, okay, I do that in the respective task scheduler. Information management, timing, okay, you can state, I do that in the task schedulers. Milestones, you do there as well, but the deliverables definition, the infrastructure plan, the hardware plans, the procedures, the standards used, the project organization will never be a plan of the task area or the work breakdown structure. I hope that is sufficient as an answer.
Definitely. I hope the answer the query got resolved. So the next one is that what are the additional aspects covered over ASPICE solution to cater to ISO 26262? So maybe the person is looking for a bit of a difference that.
A difference. Let me go back to the presentation I had here. I'm just going to show you what you have. Okay, no, here it starts. This is the coverage of SPICE, and you can see all the colors, and for sure that presentation can be made available, not a problem. This supplier monitoring is only partly inside, but here this yellow one is inside. So everything what you have here is covered, and the 26262 you see as well, depending on the colors that you have, I have marked what is covered inside. So if you want to have, can you give me the question once again? Because sorry.
Yeah, so the question was that what are the additional aspects that get covered over ASPICE solution to cater to ISO 26262?
No, there is nothing that you can move from SPICE to 26262. You need to cover both. The main area to understand is that these are total different approaches of development management. The SPICE norm is a quality norm in order to ensure that you get the quality inserted. The 26262 is a risk-based standard. For sure, here inside, if you look at pre-development, initiation, specification of software safety requirements, just as an example, or hardware safety requirements. This for sure is mapping into the SPICE, because inside of SPICE, where you have all the software requirements, you will have a specific chapter or a specific marker. This requirement is safety relevant, and it is ASIL ABC or ABCD or QM. So this, you have to have both. It's not a transformation, because here, based on safety view set, you come into the software. You don't care if the color of the screen is according to your design standards, whatever the company wants to have. For example, you care that the autonomous driving function that is doing the my measurement of the wheels on the ground is working correctly and is delivering correct data for the brakes of your ABS system. So it's a total different view set. You don't care if the color is right. You care that in case of trouble, the thing is working correctly, or you early enough get a situation as a warning and go into the safe mode. So it's a total different view set on the same subject. Whereas you need to know that 26262 is certification relevant for street certification, and automotive SPICE is not, leading to a situation that people do quality very badly.
Okay, so for the sake of time, the last question for you. So how widely ISO 26262 is adopted by the automotive industry?
Once again?
How widely ISO 26262 is getting adopted by the automotive industry?
Adapted. Let's do it very simple. The 26262 is a must-have. It, as I stated before, it's relevant for certification to be able to run on the road. There needs to be one person or one role called safety engineer that is signing that document, and therewith gets personally liable for the next 20 years in regards to compliance with this standard. And if your OEM comes up and tells you, I have here whatever, that's an autonomous steering function, or we have a positioning system, this is an ASIL whatever, it's coming to the point that if your safety engineer says, okay, you say OEM it's an ASIL B, but I see it's an ASIL C or D, because I did my hazard and risk analysis and I find that your estimation is wrong, the one of the lower one is superseding the upper one, because he is the one, if it's higher, because he is later on personal, as I said, personal, reliable, and will go to jail in case of omitting standard engineering stuff. And 26262 goes to the point that the safety engineer can stop a product even 1 day before going into serial production if he finds out that it's not covering in full. I know that sounds harsh, but it's really that hard. And the person, as I said, the safety engineer signing is personal, liable, and will be jailed, especially if you go to the US, where it's very heavy. In Germany, it's coming up, in Europe as well. It has to be done. There is nothing like I need to do it, or management doesn't want me to do that. If it's inside and management doesn't get in, it overrides the safety engineer, management personnel goes liable. So it's a must-have. It's not something like it's nice to have, it's a must-have.
Okay. So thank you, Thomas, for the lovely session. I think that's all we had planned for today, because we are running out of time now. So for any unanswered question, please drop a mail to sales@kovair.com. And as I said earlier, that we will be sending you the link to the webinar. So thank you all for joining us and have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.